There was a forest, deep in the mountains, that locals call the Silent Forest. People whispered that no birds sang, no animals stirred, and even the wind avoided that place. It was said that anyone who entered the forest after dark never returned. Sarah had heard the stories growing up, but she didn't believe in superstitions. When her friends dared her to spend one night in the Silent Forest, she accepted without hesitation. Armed with only a flashlight, she ventured into the woods as the sun set, determined to prove the stories wrong. At first, everything seemed normal, but as she walked deeper into the forest, an unsettling quiet fell over her. There was no rustling of leaves, no chirping of insects, just an oppressive silence that felt wrong. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. After an hour of walking, Sarah set up camp in a small clearing. The silence weighed heavily on her, but she brushed off her fear. As night fell, her flashlight's beam seemed weaker than it should have been, barely cutting through the darkness. Then, she heard it, the faintest sound, like a soft rustling. She pointed her flashlight toward the trees, but there was nothing. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered. The rustling grew louder, but it wasn't the sound of animals or wind. It was the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate footsteps, coming closer. She turned in every direction, but there was no one. The footsteps circled her, moving just beyond the reach of the light. "Hello," she called out, her voice shaking. No answer. The footsteps stopped, but the silence was now suffocating. Then, from the darkness, a whisper. "You shouldn't have come here." Sarah's blood ran cold. She swept her flashlight frantically through the trees but saw no one. The whisper came again, closer this time. "You need to leave." Heart pounding, she grabbed her things and ran. But no matter which way she went, the trees seemed to close in around her. The forest, once vast, now felt like a maze. The whispers followed her, growing louder, more insistent. "You'll never leave." Panic set in as the whispers surrounded her. Shadows shifted in the darkness, too quick to see but close enough to feel. It was as though the forest itself had eyes, watching her, waiting. Sarah ran for what felt like hours, her lungs burning, her legs aching. But no matter how far she went, the whispers stayed with her. She stumbled into a clearing, gasping for breath. In the center of the clearing stood an old, twisted tree. Something about it felt horribly wrong, as if it were alive. Then she saw them, figures, barely visible, standing in the shadows around the tree. They were pale, almost translucent, their faces twisted in agony. One of them stepped forward, its hollow eyes fixed on Sarah. "You'll join us soon," it whispered. Terrified, she turned and ran, but the figures began to follow, moving silently through the trees. The air grew colder, and the whispers became screams. "Run all you want, you'll never leave." Sarah's flashlight finally died, plunging her into complete darkness. She tripped, falling to the ground, her body trembling in fear. She could hear them closing in, their footsteps barely audible, their voices a chorus of tormented souls. In the blackness, a hand touched her shoulder, cold, bony, and impossibly strong. She screamed, but no sound came out. The last thing she heard was a final whisper, right in her ear. "Now you're one of us." The next morning, search parties went into the forest, looking for Sarah. They found no trace of her, just as they hadn't found the others before her. But deep in the forest, near an ancient, gnarled tree, they found something new, another shadowy figure standing among the others, forever lost to the Silent Forest.